welcome to episode 122 of the CRICKETher Weekly. And it's a bit different this week, and you can probably see that if you're watching the video version, because we are doing this over Zoom. We're not together, are we, Sid?
We're not. I'm back in Wokingham, or still in Wokingham, and you're in Birmingham.
I am in Birmingham.
How's it all going, Raf? You're wearing your uniform.
I am. Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games.
You're very on brand.
I am very on brand. It's quite a nice uniform, actually, other than the strange kind of sky blue flat cap with Peaky Blinder cap things that everyone has said that nobody's probably going to wear. But yeah, I'm having a great time. It's all lots of new information going on, and I cannot believe the amount of people who it takes just to run one venue at the Commonwealth Games, i.e. Edgbaston, which is obviously the one that I've spent most of my time in so far, and probably will for the next couple of weeks. There's just so many people, like hundreds of people, just to run one cricket match at Edgbaston, because of all of the stuff that goes on around it and the volunteers and everything like that. And yeah, it's been quite exciting getting into Edgbaston this week and seeing all the preparations being made. Not everything is ready yet, and maybe there are some things that haven't run quite so smoothly.
Okay.
Well, just in terms of trying to get all of the volunteers in place, and trying to get the central system up and running for the media content to be uploaded to and everything like that has maybe been it's a lot of organisation, and people are working really hard to try and get it done. And I'm sure that everything's going to go really smoothly once the games actually starts. It starts on Thursday and the cricket starts on Friday, so I'm really excited. Are you excited, Sid? Because you're coming along, aren't you?
I'm going to be there on Tuesday, yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. But the question everybody's asking, Raf, everyone wants to know, and this also came up on the North Show podcast. Have you met Perry?
I haven't met a real life version of Perry yet, sadly.
That's disappointing.
I know, I've seen lots of posters of Perry around, but I haven't seen a physical embodiment of Perry yet. So I'm very much hoping that we can get Perry, the mascot, along to Edgbaston in order to get a photograph taken stood next to Elise Perry. We've got to make that happen.
Okay, look forward to it.
Great. Okay, so let's get on with our roundup of everything that's happened in women's cricket over the last week. There's been lots of matches going on, both England level but also regional cricket. There was another round of regional cricket yesterday. So Sid, can you kind of round up for us what happened yesterday and where we are in the points table in the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy?
Well, it was an exciting day. I was following along. We were supposed to be watching the England match because it was so exciting. And the top two teams, Vipers and Diamonds, both nearly slipped up to Sunrisers and Lightning, the kind of bottom two teams. So Vipers at one point, Vipers batted first, and they were 38 for 5. Kate Kopak had 4 wickets for 25 runs, but somehow they recovered to 233. There was a 100 partnership between Paige Schofield, who made 74, and Chloe Hill, who finished on 55. Chloe Hill basically initially just kind of stuck with Paige Schofield, and then she made some runs after Paige got out. So they ended up on 233, and the Sunrisers so nearly chased it. I was talking to someone from the Sunrisers at one of the England games this week, and they're feeling quite kind of like they're so close to that win, and this was kind of the epitome of that, really. And they were like 11 runs short, just couldn't quite get over the line. So Vipers racked up another win, and then the Diamonds against the Lightning. And the Lightning got bowled out for 199, and how we talked last week, and I wrote a piece last week about how 200 really is not even a par score generally in regional cricket these days. So Lightning made 199, and Tammy Beaumont got 70 of them. But the Diamonds, despite another score from Lauren Winfield, it went down to the last over and the last wicket before Katie Levick, that great batter, and even she would laugh at that. She hit the winning run with 2 balls to spare. So Diamonds just scraped over as well. So with the Stars also beating Storm, that means that the top 3 sides, Vipers 18 points, Diamonds 17 points, then Stars with 14 points. So they're the ones that are in pole position to kind of qualify for the next stages, but it's going to really be a battle between Vipers and Diamonds. You feel like it's going to come down to, in fact, that's the last group stage game, I believe, is Vipers v Diamonds. And that's going to be a sort of weird sort of semi-final thing, isn't it? Because it's going to be like the winner of that game is probably going to be the one that goes directly through to the final at Lords, and the other one will end up facing it. It's looking increasingly like stars in the semi-final. So it's been an exciting day in regional cricket yesterday. Yeah, phew.
And Thunder managed to get a win as well. I thought it was interesting to see that England actually released Kate Cross to play in that match. She's obviously in the T20 and Commonwealth Games squad, but they decided, well, she's not going to get a game with us, so we're going to send her back to regional cricket, which is something that I really do support in principle. And I think that I actually complained on the podcast last year and possibly even the year before that about England monopolising players and them sitting around and running drinks when they could really be playing cricket. So I think that's a good move. It just feels like it's a little bit inconsistent, and that sometimes they release players and sometimes they don't, and that maybe it would be nice if we actually had explanations about why they do and why they don't. But maybe that's just not for the likes of us to know, Sid.
Maybe not. No, I mean, I'm guessing that Kate Cross won't play in the last T20, which is tomorrow, Monday. The fact that Freya Kemp was not released to go back to play for Vipers. She ran drinks yesterday. She was, on the boundary, and she was very much part of what was going on yesterday. It gives me a little bit of hope that she might play in the third 2020, I think. But we'll see.
Yeah, she may well do. And that's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I know that I think it was you who'd said that you thought that it could be a good way to kind of get each of these new players some game time ahead of the Commonwealth Games to actually play them in the South Africa series. And Heather Knight was kind of a bit resistant to that and sort of said, oh, well, no, we're not doing that. We want to try and work out what our best combinations are. We're not just going to play people for the sake of it. But at the same time, it feels like if they are thinking that Freya Kemp might play in the Commonwealth Games, and given how dominant England have been against South Africa so far in the whole of the multi-point series, with the possible exception of the Test, it would seem like a bit of a wasted opportunity, maybe, not to blood her in that third T20.
Yeah, definitely. And they've already won the multi-point series. They've already won the T20 series, so that's all their kind of win bonuses, sewn up, as it were, for the series wins, which is kind of, because that's inevitably going to be part of their calculations, I guess. So why not give Freya Kemp that opportunity? I think because it would be a better situation for her to have the debut then than in the Commonwealth Games if they wind up needing her. Which I think they could well do, because it's still there's still another 3 games to go in the group stages of the Commonwealth Games. And although Katherine Brunt, I said this in my piece, although Katherine Brunt has been loudly going, I want to play all 8 games in this kind of 3-week period. I think that really is, if this was a Greek mystery play, then the gods would be looking down going, I'm going to get you for that one. And so I think that it would be a smart move to rest Katherine Brunt and bring in Freya Kemp for the last game. But we'll see. Derby tomorrow. Can't wait.
Yeah. So
love
shall we
Derby.
talk?
Love Derby.
Shall we talk a little bit about the England?
Too much about how much I love
Yes,
Derby.
you are. Shut up. Shall we talk a little bit about the England matches that have happened?
Derby tourist program. Sorry. Shall we talk about
the England matches that have happened over the last week? So we've had the third ODI at Leicester. England won pretty easily. It was very hot. Tammy Beaumont hit a kind of screw you 100 just hours after finding out that she wasn't in the Commonwealth Games squad. And England nearly wrapped up their highest ODI total because for some reason Sune Lee's decided that it was a good idea to bowl first on a ridiculously hot day. And then we've had 2 of the T20s so far, with 1 left still to play. And again, England have won both of those pretty easily. The one that was played yesterday at Worcester, South Africa, were a bit better. They had quite a good partnership for the first wicket, and they did put a decent total on the board. But again, England chased it down reasonably easily. So it's all been about England, hasn't it, Sid?
Yeah, even in that last match, it never felt like England were going to lose that match, even though the scoreboard will recall that it went down with only sort of 6 balls left, or what it was 6 balls remaining. But they never looked like losing that game. They always had batting to come. Alice Capsey didn't get a bat. And there were other people that can hit the ball coming in. Even below Capsey. So I think that it was still a very confident win. And South Africa, they did put a few more runs on the board, but I don't think they made the most of their chances. I think that Wolfart is wasted not opening in the T20 format for this side. I can see a logic more generally, more widely, that if Wolfart's playing in a WBBL team or whatever, that she's probably not necessarily the right person to open the batting, and she's not always the right person to open the batting in a kind of franchise T20 leagues. But given this South Africa team, she's by far their best player, especially at the moment. And every ball that she doesn't face is a ball wasted. And I think that if they're sensible, that they will shift things around and have her open up the batting in the Commonwealth Games, because they really need to get as many balls out of her as possible, because she's, at the end of the day, a far more effective batter than anyone else in that squad. But South Africa, they did make some runs, and England, gosh, it was another case of looking on the field going, England are struggling to take wickets here. But they did eventually get that breakthrough. Perhaps missing Charlie Dean in there, although Sarah Glenn did take a couple of wickets yesterday. I think that Sophie Eccleston was actually England's best bowler. She'd certainly, looked like she was, sending down the best deliveries and giving the South Africans the most trouble. And she ended up with the best economy rate, which is, one of those things. Arguably, that's more important than wickets. But at the end of the day, South Africa didn't make enough. They weren't great in the field either. They ended up laughing at themselves. I mean, there was a brilliant catch by Sonia Lose. So Sonia Lose took a brilliant catch. And that's one that will go down the highlights reel, definitely. But generally speaking, they were a bit incompetent, and they were sort of, standing up after a misfield and sort of giggling nervously about it. And it's like, that's just, when you're doing that, that things aren't great when you're laughing at your fielding errors rather than, berating yourself, kind of thing.
They are having a tricky time of it, aren't they? I mean, we've talked about in last week's episode, we talked about the reasons for the retirement of Lizelle Lee, and that kind of came out a little bit more than the day after, when she responded to my tweet, basically insinuating that the South Africa coach had lied about knowing about the potential withdrawal of her NOC to play in the 100. So there's obviously something deeper going on there, and some kind of difficulties with management. And unfortunately, Marizanne Kapp has had to go home this week. We obviously wish her all the best, and there's a really difficult family situation there. But just thinking about in terms of openers, obviously Lizelle Lee has been their T20 opener for for years, hasn't she? And now they're kind of scratching around going, oh gosh, who can replace her? And actually she's quite a difficult player to replace. She's so explosive on her day, and so that's why they're struggling. Just in terms of openers though, England have now got Sophia Dunkley in the opening position. We thought that it might be Bryony Smith when she was picked for this Commonwealth Games squad, but it seems like Sophia Dunkley is basically going, no, it's me, guys. I'm your new opener in T20 cricket.
Yeah, and she smashed it, hasn't she? I mean, she obviously made some good runs in the first T20. She made fewer runs in the second T20, but it's not about the runs. Look at the strike rate, guys. That's what England are looking at. They want someone to be going at like 150, 160 right from the get-go. And even if you only make 15 runs, the important thing is to be going at well over 100. And she did that, and it's looking like it could be a good play for England going forwards.
And Alice Capsey receiving her first cap yesterday. I loved your Capsey caps tweet and headline. How nice was that to see? Fans of the CRICKETher Weekly will be scratching their bingo cards as we speak, Sid.
Yeah, no, it was great. I saw Tash Farrant going down, to in front of the pavilion, and I saw her standing there holding a cap, and I was like, okay, who's that for? And I looked out and I saw Alice Capsey's parents, and she was there. Her parents were there, and a couple of her siblings were there as well. And I was like, okay, well, this is the moment. So yeah, great. And she took a wicket and nearly took a second wicket as well. First wicket, was it Goodall, took a huge sweep at it, trying to slog sweep over cow corner, got a thick edge and went up in the air and was caught. And then a couple of balls later, another slog sweep down to cow corner. And Katherine Brunt was there, and I was actually sitting right on the boundary, right in front of that. And Katherine Brunt initially caught it, and I was like, "Yeah, she's caught it." And I stood up and had my arms in the air. I was watching from the crowd. I wasn't doing this in the press box and embarrassing myself in front of the other serious journalists. But unfortunately, what I couldn't see, because the LED hoardings, the sort of moving advertising things, were in front of me. What I couldn't see was that she was about to step over the boundary. She did step over the boundary. She tried to throw the ball back to herself, but couldn't quite execute that. And unfortunately, that wicket went begging. But I don't think that's Katherine Brunt's. It was a tough chance given that. But it was really disappointing for me, because it really looked like she caught it, and I had no idea that she'd been stepped over the boundary. And I was like, "What's going on? Has she like missed the celebration, thrown it up in celebration, and then done a really rubbish throw up in celebration?" And then I realized, no, she must have stepped over the boundary, because it's a little throw and she's trying to catch it again. No. So
Katherine Brunt's having a great week though, isn't she, overall?
Oh yeah, no, I have an interesting theory about this, Raf. And
Okay.
This is pure speculation, guys. There's no background information gone into this or anything like that. I think that Katherine Brunt has decided she's going to retire completely after the Commonwealth Games, and I think she is, as they say in the army, demob happy, because she just looks a different player. The cares of the world have come off her shoulders. She's kind of lost 10 years, and she's bowling like 10 years ago. She's looking like 10 years ago. She's smiling like 10 years ago. She's showing the on-field aggression that we've always got, but she just looks like released from the cares of the world. That's my theory, that she's decided she's going to retire. She knows now that that's what's going to happen, and she knows that this is kind of her swan song, her last chance. And free from those pressures, she's just absolutely going for it, and going for it without a care in the world. And I think that could massively be to England's advantage if that is the case.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I have to say that things that she said don't necessarily support that theory, but I suppose she wouldn't necessarily be totally honest with the media about her potential retirement plans. It was really interesting that I think it was after the first T20, she was interviewed by Charles Dagnall, and she said, digging deep and trying to find another gear to go to is difficult. When you get older, you have a lot of doubt that creeps in. People say things about you. You're good enough. Are you good enough to keep going? And if you listen to it enough, you start to believe it. I've had to change my mentality. I feel I've still got it, and as long as I have, I'll keep trying to perform for England. So that suggests to me that actually what's happened is a bit of a mental shift, and that she's kind of, she's just actually had to, as she says, like dig deep and think, okay, well, I think I can still do it, so I need to block out some of that outside noise, which probably has come from people like us. To be fair, there have been times where we've questioned whether it's right for her to have gone on. I hope that a lot of what I've questioned is, I'm concerned for her welfare, and I'm concerned for the health of her body post-retirement. I don't want her to suddenly collapse in a heap and that's be the end. And for her then to have a miserable life after she retires. So I hope that doesn't happen. And I think, the Commonwealth Games would be an amazing swan song, let's be honest, especially if England could win gold. Can England win gold, Sid, with this new, very exciting, aggressive approach to T20 that we've seen this week?
Well, people have certainly been getting very excited, haven't they? And that South Africa have been kind of up there as one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the world. Certainly, South Africa. I don't think anyone's disputing South Africa has been consistently in the top 4 over the last 3 or 4 years. They've occasionally sort of crept up to number 2 in various rankings. I do think we need to be slightly careful about reading too much into what's happening here. I think that come the Commonwealth Games itself, even South Africa, could see a mental shift. There's a potential semi-final opponent for England of India, which will be, definitely a tough game. India are really up for this, and they've sent, a really good side. And Australia, Australia haven't got any worse in the meantime.
No.
And, they are absolutely gunning for that gold medal. Meg Lanning was talking about, winning the treble kind of thing, and so they're not going to give any quarter either. And I think that playing Australia is going to be a very different proposition. I think, we heard Heather Knight talk about some of this, didn't we? And about how, it's been good for England to have these kind of slightly easier games against South Africa. But I don't think there is any kind of illusion in the England camp that Australia aren't going to be a very, very different proposition, and India as well. So England have still got a mountain to climb. I think this is definitely a sign. I mean, if they don't make the semi-finals, that will be like very disastrous, frankly. They really ought to make the semi-finals. But India in a semi-final perhaps is going to be a tough game, and Australia in a final even tougher. So they're a side that could do it, definitely. And on their day, it's an exciting team that can beat anyone. But if I was putting my money on it, then it would still be on Australia.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair, to be honest. I think that from what we've seen, England are pretty likely to win the silver medal, though. I'm prepared to go that far. I think that the gold is a different proposition altogether. Now, there has been some interesting news in relation to the Commonwealth Games coming from the ICC this week. We managed to finally get clarification about the statistics. People had been wondering for a while what was going to happen, given that we've got a Barbados team in the Commonwealth Games instead of the West Indies. So I'll just run through what the ICC have actually said about this, Sid. So Barbados and West Indies are entirely separate teams. No individual performances in the Commonwealth Games will count as being for West Indies. And similarly, the results of the Barbados matches will not be included in the team rankings for West Indies. Since the matches are designated as T20 internationals, the Barbados players can be classified as having played international cricket, albeit for a team that's not an ICC member. That's quite interesting because I think it was Andrew Nixon on Twitter who was saying that that's actually without precedent in terms of this not really having happened before in competitions whereby a team who's not an ICC member is effectively playing international cricket. That's quite a crazy thing to happen in many ways.
The only precedent, I think, is some of these sort of World 11 games or the rest of the world games where we've seen them have official ODI status or official test status for rest of the world games. But yeah, it is kind of an interesting precedent. And I
think I was doing some research into the Barbados team, and about half of them have never played for West Indies. So we're going to see a lot of people making an international debut at this Commonwealth Games, just purely by virtue of the fact that they have to field 11 players and they've only got about 5 or 6 in their squad who have actually played for West Indies. So I think that's really interesting.
Now, but the real question for me, Raf, is where does this leave England? Because, of course, what's easy to forget is that Team England in the Commonwealth Games is not the same team as England in the cricket world, because England in the cricket world is technically England and Wales. It's not the England Cricket Board, it's the England and Wales Cricket Board. So where does this leave England? What's the answer to that one?
Yeah, so I did ask the ICC about this as well, and they said essentially the Commonwealth Games eligibility rules have not prevented any players or prospective players from the England and Wales squad from representing England in Birmingham. So basically what they're saying is that there are no Welsh players who are currently either playing for England or potentially might have got picked for this T20 squad. So therefore, they say there are no grounds for claiming that the Commonwealth Games team should be classified separately for statistical purposes from the normal England team. Because we've got no Welsh players at the moment, that means that for stats purposes, we're just going to go down the easy route and say that it's all fine and that England is the same as England and Wales.
Yeah, now I find that a really odd answer, Raf, I have to say, because what they're essentially saying is, well, we know the outcome we want to achieve here. We've decided that we want the England games to be kind of proper England games. There were some air quotes in there if you're listening to the audio only version, but we've decided that actually the Barbados games being West Indies games turned out to be a nonsense. So therefore, kind of we're making up the rules as we go along a little bit, it feels like, unfortunately. And it does feel a little bit like a hostage to fortune, because of course, if we get a bona fide Welsh player, perhaps coming into the team for the Commonwealth Games in Brisbane in 4 years time. Is it Brisbane or is Brisbane?
I think it's Victoria. I think it's Victoria, isn't it?
Okay. Anyway, wherever it is in 4 years time, we get a bona fide Welsh player. Is that going to mean suddenly that they go, oh well, no, in that case these stats don't count, or are they going to go, oh well, yeah, we'll think of another reason at that point. Obviously, what's going to happen is they'll think of another reason, slightly making things up as they go along, but that's cricket for you.
Yes, it does seem a bit strange that we've only had official clarification less than a week before the games are actually due to commence. But hey,
and some mixed messages and people saying one thing, and then a week later someone realizes that actually doesn't make any sense, and then saying something else. But hey ho,
at least we've got an official answer now.
We now have some answers.
Yeah.
These answers have come on the record from someone at the ICC. So that's what we need to know at this stage.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think that we're going to wrap up there. I have no idea from where or how we're going to record the CRICKETher Weekly next week. We'll both be in Birmingham, so I'm sure we'll find somewhere. And yeah, we'll see how we get on. But by then the competition will be well underway, and we'll be able to bring you a bit of a roundup of what's happened so far. But for now, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.